thing we have to fear is
in war,
fear itself.
there is no substitute for victory.
Let us never negotiate out of fear.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting hand in hand for the liberty we've earned, for glory and honor, for our sons and daughters, ever mindful of the lessons we've learned. Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome to the intersection of faith and politics, WallBuilders Live. You can find out more at our website, wallbuilderslive.com, and also wallbuilders.com, intersection of faith and politics. David, our founding was kind of an intersection of faith and politics. It was a nation for the first time that was really designed for the political realm, the government realm, to protect our faith, right?
And the best way for government to protect our faith was to stay out of it. One of the things that you will find in Europe, and it doesn't matter where you want to look, which colony was founded in America, by and large they came from Europe. And most of them were fleeing some type of oppression, usually a religious oppression, not so much economic. That was some oppression, but most of it was a religious oppression. And so what you had across Europe, and it didn't matter what state you went to, what nation you went to, there was government-coerced religion or state-established religion. And so out of that context, it was actually the Christians who started calling for separation church and state, because the government had stepped in, as Henry VIII did, started his own church and said, here's the doctrines in my church, here's what you will do, here's what church you will attend, here's what you will believe at that church. That's why William Penn was thrown in jail, because he attended a church that the government had not approved. He was attending a non-government approved church, so he was in prison for that. That's why the Pilgrims came to America, because they were told that if you criticize the civil leader as being the head of the church, you will be thrown in jail without bail. You will not get out. You will not criticize the state leaders as being head of the church. So as they came to America, they said, we want a situation where government does not tell us our religion or what we have to practice or what we have to do. So 4 characteristics became common with religion in America. And that is that it be voluntary and non-coercive. So there's 2, voluntary, non-coercive. Nobody can make you choose what faith you want. They can't force you to that faith, and they can't force you into the practice of that faith. And it's got to be a free market choice. It's your own free choice. So you can be a Baptist, you can be a Catholic, you can be a Jew, you can be whatever you want to be, and nobody's going to force you to be otherwise. It's your choice, and we're going to protect the differences that are there, and then you do that through rights of conscience. The reason you have different groups is, I feel like God's telling me that I really need to baptize infants when they're born. And so that's what several denominations do. Now they say, no, I feel like God's telling me that you baptize kids once they get to the age of accountability and understand what they're doing. So you have denominations that are built over differences of what you think God wants you to do. There are differences over the way you have communion. Is it transubstantiation or consubstantiation? Some have a strong conscience that it is the actual body and blood in Christ. It is not a symbol. It is not a representation. When you take communion, it turns into the literal body and blood of Christ. Others say, no, it's a symbol. So that's what makes different faith groups, is differences over conscience. I mean, that's what made the Quakers. The Quakers were unique because their conscience was, we do not participate in taking anybody's life. Even if they're taking our life, we will not do it. We will peacefully turn the other cheek every time in every situation. We let God speak to us individually. We don't have ministers. That's our faith convictions. I mean, that's why they exist. So once they got to America, we started protecting the rights of conscience. If you look at the very first civil documents created in America, such as when Roger Williams came to Rhode Island and did the first charter in Rhode Island, it protects the rights of conscience and religious non-coercion, voluntary religious practice. You have the same thing in the Massachusetts Bay Colony. You have the same thing in the Plymouth Plantation Colony. They wrote into their charters and into their documents and into their governing documents protection for the rights of conscience, and it was to keep the government from telling them what they had to do with their own religious convictions. And if your religious convictions didn't line up with what the government wanted, tough. Government takes a back seat to religious convictions. So that's the way America was founded. Now we've got it exactly opposite. We think the separation church and state exists to keep religious convictions from having any part of anything in the public. And so whereas separation church and state used to mean keep the government out of the faith arena, It now means keep faith out of the government arena, which is exactly the opposite. And it also is, well, we in the government will tell you what the faith arena is. And so we in the government think that church is part of the government arena. And so what you have now is a situation in California where the government is telling churches what their religious practices and beliefs must be and penalizing them if they don't follow those beliefs. And unfortunately, you've had 9 churches in California stand up, and they are suing the state over that and saying, you will not tell us what our religious practices are, you will not tell us where we spend our money, you will not tell us what our beliefs are, and you will not dictate to us about our beliefs. So that's how far we've come in America, is the very thing we were founded on, and we've now become what we fled from in Europe here in America. So Jack Hibbs is a good friend. He's a pastor of one of those churches. He's a Black Robe Regiment kind of pastor, strong backbone. He's one of those pastors suing the state, and we thought we'll let him update us on this news story.
Yeah, isn't it great that out of California, where these battles are waging the most intense, we're getting some of the strongest pastors, some of the best backbone, best, Black, like you mentioned, Black Robe Regiment pastors in the whole country coming out of California. And Jack Hibbs, definitely one of those guys. He'll be with us when we return. Stay with us right here on WallBuilders Live.
This is Dr. Tony Evans with the Urban Alternative, and I have one simple question. Do you plan to vote? If not, why not? It's an opportunity to participate in this republic in a unique way. Don't stand on the sideline and throw stones when you can get in the game and cast a ballot.
This message brought to you by National Religious Broadcasters, reminding you, make plans now and vote November 4th.
This is Governor Rick Perry. Throughout American history, people of faith have risen to the task of meeting difficult challenges. Today, we're once again being called to action to restore our nation, this time at the ballot box. Your vote is your voice. When you vote your values, you send a message that America remains one nation under God. I'm Governor Rick Perry, and I'm asking you to stand up and be heard. I'm asking you to vote this November.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live with David Barton and Rick Green. Our guest today, our good friend, Pastor Jack Hibbs from out in California at Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills. How you doing, Pastor? Good to have you on, brother.
Great, Rick. Thank you, brother.
Hey, I just want to tell you, man, we so love you guys and so appreciate the stance y'all are taking. If there's an example of a Black Robe Regiment pastor, it's you, Jim Garlow, some of these great California pastors that have just stood in the gap and now rallying others. As you and I were just talking off the air about, y'all are really up against it. They're really coming after even churches now. I mean, we started with Hobby Lobby and forcing private businesses to provide abortion to their employees. Now, do I understand this right? They're now saying that churches have to do the same thing in California?
Yeah, Rick. In fact, you are so right. We got a letter from our insurance provider informing us that outside of HHS rules, California, under the leadership of Jerry Brown, was implementing a required participation of churches to pay for elective abortions for our employees to pay into that. And so we got a letter both from the insurance company and then from other agencies informing us these are the new rules, which is amazing, Rick, because here, as you mentioned, Hobby Lobby, where the federal government said, yeah, we kind of overstepped our bounds on this one. Hobby Lobby's correct. Let's leave that one alone. But not in California. Nope, California is going against what the federal courts have decided, and California is requiring us to pay for elective abortions, and so we're fighting that, Rick. We're standing against it.
And walk us through, as a pastor, if your church, your organization here that you're responsible for in your flock, if an employee uses that insurance to go get an abortion, then that means that your dollars, your church's funds that have been given to the Lord are being used for abortion.
Well, I appreciate your question. That's exactly how I feel. You know about that, Rick. This is how I see it. And I don't want to put words in any pastor's mouth, but I sure wish I could. It would be this way. We preach and teach the Word of God. People come and gather on Wednesdays or certainly Sundays. They tithe. That's their worship to God. That money is devoted to God. And here we are now being required to take that worship devoted money to pay for something where God directly says in His Word that we are to defend the defenseless. We are to speak out for those who cannot speak. God has never been into child sacrifice. He will never be into child sacrifice. And the government is asking, or demanding, I should say, that the church fund child sacrifice. And this is a line that has been crossed. And I hope every pastor in California really gets on the bandwagon here to wake up to the fact that their money, God's money, and as they are stewards over it, will not fund this sacrifice of the innocent. Not going to happen.
You know, Jack, people always say if you bring up Germany in the 30s and Bonhoeffer and all that you're exaggerating, blah, blah, blah. I just don't see how it's an exaggeration. I mean, at this point, if pastors are silent on this, how is that any different from the church in Germany being silent in the 30s? Yeah, look, Rick, I'm going to be as blunt on the air as you and I are off the air. This is exactly what we're looking at. We're looking at a Bonhoeffer moment for the pastors of California, and honestly, pastors are going to have to decide to either be biblical or be political. And let me explain that. If you're going to be biblical, you never have to worry about being political because you are going to stand for and speak out for what concerns God as revealed in His Word. But when a pastor says, I'm not going to get involved, those are political issues, then that pastor who thinks that he's avoiding politics is actually being a victim and a party to the politics. He needs to stand theologically, biblically on God's Word, and that may shake the political world, so be it. But as long as we are biblically accurate, we don't have to worry about the politics. We're not into politics. We are into defending God's truth. And a lot of pastors will say, I'm not going to get involved in those political issues. Really, they're trying to hide from standing up and being that watchman on the wall that God's called them to be. That just clears up so much the way you just described that, because it seems like not just the pastors but the church itself. I mean, we've bought this lie that if you talk about something that is also being talked about in politics, that it's defined as a political issue. When the Bible speaks to it, how can we take it out, take it off the table and say it's not a biblical issue? If the Bible speaks to it, then it's a biblical issue and should be addressed. You just redefined it so well to the truth. I mean, it's all biblical issues. Just be biblical and don't worry about politics. Just be biblical. Well, yeah, the beauty of it is if you and I are biblical, here's what's fun. No matter how the vote goes, we're always going to be on the right side of eternity because we're going to stand before God in the end. And what's going to be so liberating is that we stood for what's right. No matter what the outcome was, we can look the Lord in the face and say, Lord, I stood for the innocent. And He's not going to entertain any debate about, well, political, not political. No. We are to do the right thing. The great thing, Rick, about being biblical is that in the end, we are going to be correct. If we're biblical, we will always be correct. I love it. Got to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Jack Hibbs is our guest here on WallBuilders Live. Just watched the other night a video, A Time to Speak. In fact, we're going to have a guest on in a week or so about that. But in that video, I remember Eric Metaxas saying it's time for pastors to stop talking about Bonhoeffer and go be Bonhoeffer. That's what's happening in California right now. Stay with us. We'll be right back and ask Jack what they're doing to respond to this. You're listening to WallBuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. In the case Lee versus Wiseman, the Supreme Court ruled that for an adult to mention the word God at a public graduation constituted both psychological and religious coercion against the students. Yet consider the actions of William Samuel Johnson, a signer of the Constitution and one of America's leading educators who served as the first president of Columbia College. At his graduation exercises, William Samuel Johnson declared to the students, "You this day have received a public education, the purpose whereof hath been to qualify you better to serve your Creator and your country. Your first great duties, you are sensible, are those you owe to heaven, to your Creator and Redeemer." Founding Father William Samuel Johnson believed that a public graduation was an appropriate setting to remind students of the duties which they owed God.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Jack Hibbs with us, pastor from Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills out in California, right on the front lines of this issue of churches now, not just businesses, churches being forced to provide abortion to their employees. And Jack, it is a Bonhoeffer moment, just as you said in the last segment. How do you respond as a pastor in this situation? I mean, what's the battle line, I guess, at this point? I assume you guys are having to go to court against the insurance company and the state, or how does this work?
Yeah, exactly that. What we've done, we are one of 7 churches, which I think is a beautiful Book of Revelation number. 7 churches from California have gotten together with Alliance for Defending Freedom.
And it's a mix of, if I've seen the list right, it's Baptist, non-denominational, I mean, all kinds.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so we have filed a complaint against the state of California, and we're going to be taking this as far as we need to take it. This is something where I was just asked by Fox News, at what point will you surrender this fight? How far will this go? And I said, we will not surrender this fight. We will go all the way. And so, we're committed to this. Again, it is a biblical issue. And, Rick, we cannot fold at this point, because if we fold at this point, if the church packs up and goes back into its doors and closes and hides inside the church, we will be, as exactly what you just said, we will be doing exactly what the Christians did in Germany during Bonhoeffer's day. They just sang louder, as we've often heard before. They just sang louder. They just became inclusive in that sense. They shut their doors down. They sequestered themselves rather than stand up. Somebody might say, well, if you stand up, you're going to get in trouble. That's exactly what Jesus said would happen to us in these last days. We would stand for righteousness. This is what we're asking pastors and churches in California to do. It's time now to stand for righteousness. If we don't stand and let our light shine, it's not going to come from any other place but from the pulpits of California. And Rick, off air, I told you, we are really encouraged. This seems to be something. I think California has hit the bottom, because we are seeing churches call us. We're having pastors call us saying, what do I do? We've never had this happen before. I am hoping that this very thing, like perhaps down in Houston, Texas, a revival comes out of this moment. This is a Kristallnacht, I believe it was in Germany, the night of the broken glass. Well, the glass in California may have been broken, and it's time to stand up.
Pastor Larry White from Houston, he has that great sermon on the sin of silence and talks about that whole Germany situation.
Yes.
He said the same thing. He said, you know, Rick, usually the enemy is very, very sly, but in this case, I think they've overstepped. They've overplayed their hands, and both in this Houston situation and in this insurance situation with you guys as churches. And by doing that, they've really shown what they want to do. They want to make you conform to their, not only their beliefs, but their actions. And maybe it will be. Maybe it is. That not maybe. I mean, you're seeing it. You're seeing the pastors actually respond and stand up. So this is a wake-up moment. We're
seeing it happen. And Rick, here's the beauty. Right here in California on the left coast, gray has evaporated. It's either black or white now. The gray is gone, and the church will either stand for what's right or it will become irrelevant. And a lot of people today are saying, well, how do we build a church and be relevant? Forget about that. Be biblical, because God is always relevant. And when God is allowed to be relevant in and through our lives, God takes on the issues that concern him. And that's the church, I pray, that's awakening now in California.
But before I let you go, how can a church member, what would you say as a pastor to a church member that wants to approach their pastor about these things and get them to begin speaking biblically on all these issues? How do they approach them if it's been avoided in the pulpit at their church? What's the right way to go to your pastor and say, hey, I need teaching on this issue?
I think there's several ways. I would encourage, now look, this is one reporter's opinion, but I would have that Christian, for example, log on to this program and other programs that you guys have done. I mean, frankly, Rick, you and David are doing it. If someone in a church would listen to the programs that you guys have at your website, Secondly, I know just from my angle, I have made cases, and it just so happens to have been on Fox News several times, what Christians or pastors ought to be doing. I guess what I'm saying is this. If someone's listening right now and they want to get their pastor turned on to standing up, that pastor may be a little bit intimidated about it, but once he's armed with the vision, the biblical reason why, and that there's people there to watch his back, he may just very well stand up. And so I would encourage you to give your pastor the knowledge that he's not alone. There are other pastors, and there's great ministries like WallBuilders standing alongside of us to make our voice even louder. Finally, I would just say that we are at that kairos moment. This is a moment of defining, a moment of decision. And that I believe, Rick, as you do, God is stirring the hearts of his men in the pulpits who he has called, and they will stand. Some of them might need, like Timothy, some encouragement, but they're going to stand. So, Christian, talk to your pastor, encourage him, tell him you're going to pray for him, but you're hoping that he takes a stand and gets into the battle.
Last question, if some of the churches that are listening in California would like to team up with you guys on this suit, and maybe they're facing the same thing and need guidance, is Alliance Defending Freedom the place to contact?
They really do. They need to go to Alliance Defending Freedom, ADF.com, or .org, and find out more. And they've got it all there. They are covering our back, and they are really the go-to guys on being up to date on the latest information of what's happening here in California.
Man, isn't it great as a pastor to have all these groups out there like Alliance Defending Freedom and Pacific Justice Institute and all these legal organizations that you don't have to go become an expert on the law. You could be, do your thing as a pastor, and these fellow Christians, these brothers can lock arms with you, and I just love it. I mean, there's just a lot of neat things coming together in our country right now. God bless you, brother. Thanks for all you're doing out there, and thanks for taking the time to come on the program. Let us know how it goes, and let's get you back for an update.
We will. God bless you, Rick. I'll see you later.
You too. That's Pastor Jack Hibbs, back in a moment with David Barton.
In 1776, the difference of one vote gave America the English language instead of German. In 1876, the difference of one vote made Rutherford Hayes President of the United States. In 1923, the difference of one vote gave Adolf Hitler leadership of the Nazi Party. Get the idea? One vote, yours, makes a huge difference. Vote.
This message brought to you by National Religious Broadcasters.
This is Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal. The Bible is full of stories of men and women whose faith in God led them to take action during difficult times, trusting that He would work all things out for His glory and the good of His people. Today, God's people are once again being called to take action as we seek to restore the values our nation was founded upon and honor those who have given their lives in defense of our freedom. I'm Governor Bobby Jindal, and I'm asking you to stand up. I'm asking you to vote this November.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
We're back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Special thanks to Pastor Jack Hibbs. Man, David, I love getting Jack on and other. We had Jim Garlow on a few weeks ago. I mean, these pastors out of California that are just fired up, and they see positive things happen.
Well, they're experiencing what happens when you haven't been involved in a long time, because we've given the culture over to people who have an opposite worldview. They're very hostile. We were willing to live and let live. We didn't force people to pray who didn't want to. We didn't force, but now we're being forced to do things that violate us. Now, they may not have liked having public prayer, but we didn't force them to participate. But now they are, and this is Jack's quote. He said they're forcing the participation of churches in the abortion industry. That's a state-enforced religion. This is what separation of church and state was all about, was to keep the government from forcing churches into doing these type of things. So whereas our participation was voluntary and non-coercive, we respected different rights and thinking, they don't. And as Jack said, again, quoting from him, he said, every pastor in California needs to wake up. Well, I got news. It's every pastor in America needs to wake up, because
That's
while
right.
California is there, look at what happened in Houston with the subpoenas of pastors in Houston. Look at the pastors up in Idaho who are facing jail time because the city said, you will perform homosexual weddings. They said, don't tell us what weddings will do. You will, or you're going to jail. I mean, government telling pastors what their beliefs have to be, what their convictions have to be, what they have to participate in. That's nuts. But I love the way Jack laid out the options. You got to decide whether you want to be biblical or political. And if you decide to be biblical, then you don't have to worry about the political. Just be biblical and accurate.
That was great. I love how he laid that out.
It was really, really good. And I love what he said. If you're biblical, you'll always be correct. You don't have to talk about being politically correct. Just be biblical and you will be correct. And so the other thing I thought he said was really powerful was, and both of you were talking about it, but stop talking about Bonhoeffer and go be Bonhoeffer.
Yeah, that was great too.
It was, and in Bonhoeffer's day, you guys talked about they sequestered themselves rather than stand up. They would sing louder to themselves inside the churches rather than go outside the churches and confront the Nazis. And that's where we are now. We can keep gathering on the inside and sing to ourselves and keep getting smaller. Are you going to have to go outside at some point and confront the Nazis, confront the problems, confront the things that are trying to tear you down, or they will tear you down? And that's what the church learned way too late in Bonhoeffer's day. So, Jack was just loaded up with all sorts of good things to apply, and we need to heed those and listen to them and apply them across the country.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. Special thanks to Jack Hibbs. Thanks for coming on today. Thank you, listeners out there. Encourage your pastors, as Jack was talking about. Encourage them to speak out. Encourage them to feed the flock on these issues and not see them as political, but know that they are biblical, just like every other
by the way,
issue.
Rick, when you encourage your pastor, always also take care to make sure you cover his back, because when somebody in church just does jump up and yell at the pastor, you need to go confront him and say, hey, back off. He's doing the biblical thing. So we need to cover the backs of our pastors if we're going to ask them to stand up and be courageous.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening today, folks. You've been listening to WallBuilders Live.
We stand undivided.